Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Keene. I chair the Water Quality Committee for the EMC, and we'll get started at, is that 2:45 or 1:45? 1:45, and our schedule goes to 3:45. So we'll try to certainly get out of here in time today, but we have to get started, and I'll bring it to order. And the North Carolina General Statute 138A-15 mandates that at the beginning of any meeting of the board, the chair shall remind all members of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest under subchapter. The chair also shall inquire as to whether there is a known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the board at this time. Are there any to the committee members? Thank you. If not, we'll proceed to approve the draft minutes in your packet, September the 10th, 2025, those meeting minutes. Is there a motion on the floor that we approve those, or are there any additions or? Yes.
Motion to approve.
Okay, the motion is made to approve the minutes as written. Commissioner Twitty had a question when we got to this point. So if you will allow me, just go ahead and get a second, and then we'll have discussion. Michael and Commissioner Ellison seconded that. So now discussion, Commissioner Twitty.
Yes, thank you. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's item 1 from the minutes last time. There was a presentation on PFAS rule. And then it goes straight in the minutes to Commissioner Yarborough's motion. There was some other action that occurred in between there where I tried to make a motion that was not allowed. There was some discussion around that. I think that should be reflected in the record. I can work with the chair, vice chair, Lois, whoever I need to, on that wording to be added in there. And for efficiency, we could just push that to the next meeting for approval, if that's okay with you. There's a way to do that.
Let me look at that real quick.
Or I have language as well, but sidetrack the meeting.
Yes, there was some discussion about not allowing you to make a motion, but to take this to this month's meeting in November, which we've done today, but that's not reflected in the minutes. So if you would, if it'd be okay with the committee, Commissioner Baumgartner and Commissioner Ellison with the second, that if we can make that addition and let you draw that narrative up and give it to the clerk and run it by me, and I'll be glad to share it with all the committee members. And then we can make that addition at the next meeting.
That's fine.
Okay. Or you can withdraw the motion.
And then we'll just have it defer to the next meeting.
I would withdraw a motion to approve.
One second. Withdraw.
Yes.
Please. Okay, then we'll make that addition at the next meeting and have them approved. Are there any other, well, while we're there, is there any committee member have any? Okay, we'll make that change. Thank you, Commissioner Twitty. We have 2 action items today on the agenda. Request approval to proceed to the EMC with the proposed PFAS and Gen X monitoring and minimization rules 15A NCAC 02H.0923 and 15A NCAC 02B.0512. Karen Preston with DWR will make a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you so much. It's been a long, I'm going to say this, it's been a long time coming. We've worked this now long enough. So we're getting this out hopefully today, and we'll do that with 1-4 at our next action item after we go over that. But certainly The department has worked really, really hard to put all this together for this year. And the committee members have worked hard in getting this done as well. And we're looking forward to getting this out today. And Karen, if you would, go ahead and give our presentation today. After our presentation, there are several attachments, and I'm sure there'll be some questions, and we'll debate that within the committee as we go through this this action item.
I was just trying to make sure it was the updated slide that had been added to the agenda, but I think it is. Just a little bit different looking. No, I think so. I think it is.
Is that what's on the website?
Yes.
Have you changed the slide since you posted it?
No, it hasn't been changed since it was posted. I was just making sure this was the correct one that was pulled up.
I got you.
Thank you. I'm Karen Preston. I'm the MPDS Permitting Municipal Unit Supervisor, and I will be covering the request approval to proceed to the EMC with the proposed PFAS, PFOA, and Gen X monitoring and minimization rules. And I'm going to go over a summary of those here with you all. A little bit of background on the draft rule. PFAS compounds include PFOS, PFOA, and Gen X, and they are per and polyfluoroalkyl substances that are widely used, long-lasting chemicals, and components of which break down very slowly over time. These chemicals are used in a variety of industrial and commercial processes, as well as consumer products. Because of their widespread use and their persistence in the environment, many PFAS compounds are found in the blood of people and animals all over the world, including North Carolina, and are present in low levels in a variety of food products and in the environment. On November 12th, the Water Quality Committee passed the following motion to support efforts towards understanding the sources of PFAS and levels of certain PFAS compounds in North Carolina. The motion was to direct DOWR staff to develop a PFAS minimization initiative for major and minor industrial dischargers to surface water and all significant industrial users, or SIUs, that discharge to publicly owned treatment works. The minimization initiative will require monitoring for PFAS and implementation of minimization activities required to eliminate significantly reduce discharges of PFOS, PFOA, and Gen X over a 3 to 5 year period. 2 rules were drafted following this motion. This was due to the multiple different entities that will be affected by the draft rules. The first one is the 15A NCAC 02H 0923. These will specifically pertain to significant industrial users and their monitoring and minimization, and it will be implemented through the pretreatment program at the local municipality. The second set that will be covered is 15A NCAC 02B 0512, and this will pertain to monitoring and minimization for industrial direct dischargers, and then also separately monitoring for publicly owned treatment works with local pretreatment program. And these are divided up because there will be no minimization per the draft rules for POTWs. I'm going to give a slight overview of what these rules will require as they are drafted now. For 02H 0923, these are the significant industrial user rules. Within 60 days of the rule effective date, the POTW will contact all SIUs that are required to do baseline PFAS sampling for PFOS, PFOA, and Gen X. This baseline sampling will be quarterly samples for 1 year at the SIU effluent discharge that goes to the POTW, and those results will be reported to the POTW. Once that is complete, POTWs will determine if ongoing sampling is needed per the rule. This is established in the draft rule as if there are any quarterly sampling results for PFOS, PFOA, or Gen X that are above the lowest reporting concentration, or i.e. it is not a non-detect result. Ongoing sampling will then go to semi-annually at the effluent only and continue until the concentrations for all PFOA, PFOS, and Gen X are below the lowest reporting concentration in 4 consecutive effluent samples at that effluent station. If determined ongoing sampling is needed, the SIU will also be required to develop a minimization plan for PFAS, PFOA, and Gen X loading, or to reduce PFAS, PFOA, and Gen X loading to the POTW. All the monitoring and minimization activities will be reported by the POTW to the division every year via their pretreatment annual report, which is due annually on March 1st. The second draft rule, the O2B 0512, the first part of it is the industrial direct dischargers. This is very similar to the SIU rule. Within 60 days of the rule effective date, the division director will contact all the industrial direct discharger facilities that are required to participate in the baseline sampling for PFAS, PFOA, and Gen X. Again, this will be quarterly sampling for 1 year at the influent or intake water and at the industry's effluent discharge. These results will be reported to the division. After that step, the division will determine if ongoing sampling is needed per the rule. This is very similar, again, that if any quarterly sampling result of PFOS, PFOA, or Gen X has a concentration above the lowest reporting concentration, or it exceeds the concentration reported in the intake of water to the facility, ongoing sampling will be required. This will be semi-annually until there are 4 consecutive effluent samples that are below the lowest reporting concentration. If it is determined that the industrial direct discharger needs ongoing sampling, they will also be required to develop a minimization plan. And this will be reported along with the monitoring results to the division annually. O2B 0512 also encompasses the POTWs, and these are POTWs with approved local pretreatment programs. Within 60 days of the rule effective date, the division director will contact all of the POTWs that are required to do baseline sampling. Again, this will be sort of quarterly for 1 year at both the influent to the treatment plant and the effluent discharge, and this will be reported to the division. And then the division will determine if ongoing sampling is needed per rule. If any sampling result for PFOS, PFOA, or Gen X has a concentration above the lowest reporting level. Ongoing sampling will occur semi-annually until it is below the lowest reporting level concentration for PFOS, PFOA, or Gen X in 4 consecutive effluent samples. As I stated before, they will not have minimization requirements as the other 2 entities would. That is an overview of the rules themselves, and I'm going to give a quick 2-page summary of the fiscal note that was approved by OSBM. The number of facilities anticipated to conduct baseline monitoring and then also continued monitoring and development minimization are displayed here. For baseline monitoring, every facility that falls into the different types, the SIUs, industrial direct dischargers, or the POTWs with pretreatment programs, were included into the baseline monitoring. For continued monitoring only, this category will only pertain to POTWs as they do not require minimization plans. And then for the continued monitoring and minimization plans, the majority of the SIUs and industrial direct dischargers were determined to need continued monitoring and minimization plans, but some were assumed to not have to based on their SIC codes of known dischargers of PFAS and using other EPA guidance. Cost estimates were then developed using the number of sources affected, cost of baseline monitoring, the continued monitoring, development of a minimization plan, and the implementation of the minimization plan. These cost estimates can be seen here, and we're broken down into 2 major groups. The first is the monitoring and minimization plan development cost, and then second, the implementation of minimization plans. For the private sector, we considered SIUs and their costs for monitoring minimization. As stated before, this is the cost of the baseline sampling, developing their minimization plans, reviewing data, everything that would go into that. And that cost was estimated to be $93.3 million. For the industrial direct dischargers, it's very similar way of estimating, taking into consideration all the things we've already talked about. And this cost estimate was $26.5 million. For the North Carolina local government, the POTWs specifically, we covered the cost of monitoring, but then also it was projected that SIUs will need support and review going through their data and developing these minimization plans as well as approving them. So staff time included in that. The estimation was $7.9 million. The North Carolina state government cost was only personnel costs to review the minimization plans and the data that are submitted in the reports to the division. And that was estimated at $1.2 million with a combined estimated cost of $129.5 million. As I stated before, the implementation of minimization plans was segregated out as this was a projected cost range per facility. As the rules are drafted, there is no specified best management practice or prescribed way to achieve minimization. So it was assumed that there will be a variety of options chosen by these facilities. And due to that, the cost range that was estimated was $0.1 million to over $1 million per facility based on what they chose. Qualitative benefits were analyzed and approved in the RIA. Some of these were statewide PFOA, PFOS, and Gen X database that will be created with all of the data that will be submitted from the monitoring plans. This will increase transparency and public awareness of concentration levels and where they are located. This database will also promote data-driven decision-making, and then further will protect designated uses of surface water that is suitable for various human and ecological uses. Through minimization, there may be reductions in exposure to PFOA and PFOS that may be linked to harmful health effects. And then minimization may also lead to reduction of PFOS, PFOA, and Gen X in effluent to surface water and to the subsequent biosolids. We are here today for an action item request. So the Division of Water Resources is requesting that the Water Quality Committee approve to proceed to the EMC with the proposed draft rules 15A NCAC 02H 0923 and 15A NCAC 02B 0512 for PFOS, PFOA, and Gen X monitoring and minimization plans.
Thank you, Karen. Is there any questions from the committee members? Karen, on her presentation. Commissioner Ellison?
What are the current detection limits for these three compounds?
I have them, so I didn't misspeak. For PFOA and PFOS, it is 4 nanograms per liter. And I want you to back me up on the Gen X.
It's all right. Hi, I'm Julie Grape, Deputy Director for Division of Water Resources. So the lowest reporting detection level, the PQL, keeps getting lower and lower, of course, and it's based on the lab that you go to and the test equipment that they use, as long as it's sufficiently sensitive. But the monitoring reporting level for that EPA is using for PFOA and PFOS is 4 nanograms per liter. And they're using as far as Gen X, you can go down to 0.02 nanograms per liter. So it can get quite low. But anyway, it's a low value, and but the rules, it is around 10 is what they propose for an MCL, just to give you an idea. So it's low.
In one of your earlier presentations, and my memory could be faulty, just ask my wife. I thought you had mentioned another test method that had lower detection limits but was not fully approved.
I'm not sure
Okay.
what you're referring to.
Okay. And how rapidly are these test methods evolving?
How long do they take to
No, no, no.
test?
How rapidly are the methods changing? Are they
Oh.
evolving? So 2 years ago, the detection limit was 50 or whatever it was. Are they coming out with new methods? And I'm guessing EPA and researchers come up with these methods, right?
Yeah, so I don't think they're changing that rapidly. What is changing is the PFAS analytes that they can detect. Instead of, we started with like 26, then we went to 40, then we went to 57, and then we went. So what they're really trying to do is improve on the number of analytes they can detect. I don't see a huge change in the detection level per se.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee members have questions for the department? Karen or Julie or anyone? Thank you. You've, the committee members, we've all seen the RIA, the approved, OSBM approved RIA, and the memorandum that came from that with, on the PFAS. So I'd like to have some discussion, debate, or however we want to decide on this. We did ask them to come to us with this today, and they brought the OSBM approved RA, and they brought their suggestions, and they're requesting us to move it to the EMC. And as you saw your agenda from the EMC, we have Chairman J.D. Solomon with us today. Thank you. As an ex officio member who put in the agenda that 30-day waiver is possible tomorrow. So we, with all that, let's discuss this for a few minutes here and talk about PFAS and what the department's brought before us. Commissioner Baumgartner.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Keen. So looking at the RIA, I just want to point out a few things that were of interest to me. One, page 18 sub note, that table. This is a statement I really believe, which is why we pushed this motion forward before. It states it is expected that many facilities will be good environmental stewards and take meaningful steps to reduce PFAS. And I truly believe that this process we're going through will meet those goals. When looking at the cost structure that was proposed by the department, if you divide those SIUs out, that's a little over $150,000 for an SIU over 5 years. IDDs, $122,000. PO2W is $62,000. If you take that comparison to where we were last year, that's $129,000 total that the department had put in the RA as a suspected cost over 5 years. Last year, we were looking at setting standards that were looking at $263 million per year. So to me, I think relying on private industry and for the SIUs and the IDDs to figure it out, that we're asking for zero tolerance. If you get a detect, you need to go ahead and figure out a minimization plan, or monitor and minimize. Let private industry figure out how the best way to do that, the best BMPs to do it. And I think we're going to get to a better place with this rule than we would setting standards. That's just my opinion. But anyway, just want to state that.
Mr. Baumgartner, thank you.
Yeah, just also in response to what you're saying, to me, what I had difficulty understanding in reading this over and over again and trying to understand it was, as a scientist, I'm missing a standard here. I'm missing a number. Monitoring is not minimizing, in my view, without actually having a goal or a number to achieve. And I was looking for that. Could you maybe comment on that?
That was Commissioner Jaspers for the record.
Sorry,
I
yes.
forget we were live and I want everyone to know who that was.
Chair, can I
Sorry.
respond?
Commissioner Baumgartner.
So what this rule states is that the intake to outtake changes, then you have to do a minimization plan.
Yep.
So you monitor to see if there's a change in intake outtake. and then you develop a minimization plan. If there's a change, develop a minimization plan. So standard zero, the standard is it shouldn't change. And if it does change, you need to establish BMPs and minimize going forward.
But that is just a change. That's not the overall level, meaning if you don't change from an unhealthy level to no change to keeping it an unhealthy level, what does that actually mean?
Why would we want to set at this point a standard for them to meet in that change if we just want to see PFAS out of the water to begin with? If there's an increase from intake to outtake, then we should see minimization in BMPs. Go ahead and try to reduce as much as possible. That's what this rule is saying. You're asking for a target in order for them to meet, right? What I'm saying is, if there is a change and there is an increase, minimize that. We don't want to give, I really don't care about a target. If there is a change, take steps to minimize that in your operation.
Commissioner Ellison?
I think to elaborate on what Commissioner Baumgartner said, there are likely to be facilities that can try certain practices in their minimization plan and perhaps see a significant decrease in their effluent concentrations. There would be other facilities that can see larger decreases in their effluent. And then, so as a total, and for the lower Cape Fear, for example, there could be substantial decreases by everybody doing what they can. The other thing this helps us do is find out the scope and scale of the problem. Where are the high concentrations coming in? We know from monitoring different river systems, we know what the concentrations are in the rivers, but we don't know where it's coming from. And one of the phrases Chair Solomon has used frequently is stop it at the fence line. So this is the first step in getting the dischargers to stop at the fence line before it goes to the POTW or direct discharge into the rivers. It's an interim step that allows us to make better informed rules and allows dischargers a chance to clean up their act.
Commissioner Twitty?
I think there's a whole lot of faith that goes into those statements. There's no requirement in this. The only requirements in this rule are that they monitor and develop a plan. There's no requirement that that plan be successful, that it be successful to a certain level. So there's a lot of faith that bad actors are going to clean up their act, once it's known that they're bad actors and that they're going to do what they need to do. I hope you can say I told you so in 2 or 3 years or so when this all goes forward. The other point I want to make is what Commissioner Ellison just said, is this is a first step. I hope that is how this committee and this commission is looking at this. This is a first step. I don't think it's a particularly good rule. I think it does move the football down the field a little bit, which I think is a good thing. I think there is a lot more work that this committee and this commission needs to do. So I am in support of moving this forward today for those reasons.
Commissioner Baumgartner?
I hope we're both sitting here and saying, this was good going forward. But I will say, page 18 of the RIA, evidently the department shares that faith too, because it says, as expected, many facilities will be good environmental stewards and take those meaningful steps. So I don't think I'm alone in that faith.
Commissioner Jaspers, then Commissioner Ellison.
So one question I had in reading this and trying to educate myself about, what is particular about North Carolina? I looked at other states, what they've done. And Michigan is an example. Michigan has a very similar PFAS problem, just like North Carolina does. And they've actually experienced some significant harm of not regulating it and affecting agriculture in their state. But when you go to their website, they have very specific numbers. It's a very different ruling. So my question is, and again, I'm new, so I apologize if this was discussed at earlier meetings, but why not use what Michigan has done as a potential example or template I mean, the people of Michigan are not any different. They don't need to be protected more or less than the people of North Carolina. So how did this evolve and not using what has been done in Michigan as a template? That's just a question.
Commissioner Ellison.
Having been born in Michigan, to some degree, we are taking pieces of that template that we thought would be best for North Carolina as an initial step. And I would concur with Commissioner Tweedy that there are bad actors, but there are good actors. And I think this is going to be a wake-up call to everybody, because this is an interim step. And most likely, at some point in the future, there's likely to be a numeric standard that they'll have to comply with. And the steps they take in their minimization plan will advance their compliance for whatever comes out at a later date. I would also point out that the science is evolving. The treatment practices are evolving. There are new treatment practices now that didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. So this is it's a global problem. Really smart people are trying to figure out how to solve it. And we will know as a commission and as the Department of Environmental Quality, we will know where the problem is and how severe it is. And again, as everything is evolving and developing simultaneously, I think we'll be able to come up with a much better solution in the future. I don't want to put a date on it, but so I think this is a good rule.
Just to follow
Commissioner
up.
Jaspers.
So just to follow up on that, I agree. There's new technology that's going to make it a lot more feasible, a lot easier to clean up these forever chemicals. I also agree that there's going to be very good actors, but the bad actors, there's no teeth in this ruling that will hold them accountable. And that's what I'm worried about.
Okay. Any other comments from committee members?
Question, if I might.
Commissioner Reardon.
So let's say what you say is true. What's to preclude us from taking additional steps? Once we know what the baseline is, we have a better understanding. There's an old analogy. The best time to plant a pecan tree was 25 years ago. Next best time is today. This gives us a better understanding of who's doing what and where.
Right.
And then if we find that we do have these chronic violators who now better understand their baseline and their increase, then it's incumbent upon this committee and the department to take those next steps. Is that fair?
So I agree with you, but I'm not, and maybe again, I'm new, maybe I'm not reading this correctly. I'm not seeing that there are specific steps or guidelines that would follow this if there's the bad actors. Right now, to me, this reads as a lot of monitoring, but no follow-up and no consequences. That's what I'm worried about.
Commissioner Ellison.
Right now, there's not, EPA has not promulgated a surface water standard. And that doesn't preclude us from establishing one. But actually, the Hardison Amendment might, I don't know. In any case, because the data will be public, the bad actors will be exposed. The department will have their addresses. And if and when it becomes necessary for a big stick approach, then we can be very specific and make a more effective rule. The technology is changing as far as which compounds and how many compounds can be measured, and the treatment technology is evolving, and the risk profiles of different compounds is constantly evolving. And right now, there are other countries that have very, very high numeric criteria. over 400 or something in New Zealand. And I don't remember what all the numbers are, but they vary by orders of magnitude compared to what the department originally proposed as a numeric standard in North Carolina, because other countries have accepted certain scientific toxicological analyses that we did not initially anyway with our initial standard idea. We were not attendant to that research. So, and that research continues to progress. So rather than set a standard that may not be in the best interests of the whole state, we're trying to fully apprehend the nature of the problem as, again, all the multiple lines of investigation continue, and then we'll react accordingly. But there doesn't necessarily have to be a set goal. The dischargers know they're expected to have results, okay? And they can decide how much money they want to spend on treatment processes or housekeeping, and there are no set requirements. But if they don't improve, they're going to have to improve sooner or later.
Okay, so can I just finish your sentence? They have to improve or what?
Well, again, this is an interim measure. And if the state does not see the improvements, there would be some subsequent rulemaking.
Yeah, I mean, isn't Michigan, they have a threshold 10 UGL, if I remember correctly? Yeah, it was 10 or 12
Sorry, I
or
don't know the
something, yeah.
exact number. They have it all published.
But
yeah.
that was for them to minimize their discharge, correct? That was the trigger for them to minimize discharge. Otherwise, you didn't have to minimize. Is that the way I remember?
I don't remember. It's all, I mean, all of the standards, the surface water
What we're saying
standards.
here, if you have any detect between intake, outtake, that you need to minimize. So if that is the case, and I may not be remembering it correctly, then ours is more stringent, then this would be more stringent than Michigan. What, am I missing?
So the standard that we're setting is basically above detection limit?
Above the difference between intake and outtake,
But so not the total, not the total. We're talking about the delta.
the delta, correct, yeah.
So the delta, right, the delta is kind of moot if the intake is high and the effluent is high,
But
then the
how
delta
can-
is zero.
That's not right. That's not right.
Okay, so that's, but I didn't think so. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman Solomon.
What
Yeah,
triggers
comment.
this is the reportable limit. And the purgatory that somebody gets into is if you stay above the reportable limit, you'll be doing minimization the whole way. There's not a real clear way to get off the train.
Mhm.
Okay? This also is enforceable because two things are enforceable about. One is they have to submit the plan to be approved. If I back up and look at all the EPA source reduction and pollution prevention, their advice is every industrial facility is unique. So there needs to be some toolbox maybe, but that needs to be flexible to be site specific. And so what this plan allows for is for the facility and DEQ or the SIU staff to sit down and develop that minimization plan that makes sense to make progress. Then that will continue on as a requirement, I anticipate in their permit, but certainly in this rule forever, that they comply by whatever plan they've laid out to do. And that's in here. So here we're saying not every industrial facility is alike, and we're not even sure what number they can exactly reduce to. We've chosen a very conservative level of basically zero. And we're saying you will go to zero in effect until you can prove you are not or you're below zero. And so that's enforceable because there's a requirement in the plan that those BMPs need to be established and accepted by all parties. And that this has to keep on in perpetuity, which would be a permittable requirement for a monitoring and minimization.
Right.
And counsel, if I got that wrong, clean that up, but I think that's the way I read the rule, and I think that's what's legally enforceable.
Yeah, I think if you look at paragraph F4, there's a requirement that and I'm sorry, I'm looking at B0512. There's a requirement that the discharger commence the implementation plan, that it comply with the minimization plan, and that the minimization plan be incorporated into the permit upon permit renewal.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it being in rule and in the permit makes the minimization plan enforceable.
Okay. So it's a permit renewal.
And being in the rule, I
And the-
mean, a violation of
okay.
one of the EMC standards in rule can be grounds for enforcement.
Any other comments? Again, I would like to get this out in some fashion today. I'm asking the committee members to make sure that the discussions are good and debate is good and questions come out that we can get answered as we move through the process.
Question.
Like to, go ahead, Commissioner.
Question. Should we set a trigger, for want of a better word, that's higher than the detection limit?
That's a good question.
Yeah, well, I had some thoughts on that. I didn't know if we were going to make a motion on, to move forward on this and then make some comments, but I will say, I'd like to have some instruction language included in this when we go out to comment. We need to hear from everybody.
Right.
We're not the only ones that might be working on this, and we got a whole group here that's very concerned about this, and we want to hear from everyone. So I would like for the commission to direct staff to solicit public comment on whether it would be scientifically defensible and advisable to establish a screening threshold above the lowest reportable concentration, the LRC, or PFAS, PFOA, and Gen X, that could serve as a trigger for ongoing monitoring and minimization requirement. We've identified that we were going to use the detection level. Let's hear from the community. Is that the right one, or should there be a trigger above that? And have the public provide input that addresses the potential thresholds, analytical variability, background levels, and alignment with the federal guidance and risk-based approaches. I think we're smarter when we listen to a lot of other folks in this. I think this is a great step forward, but we'd be remiss without having instructions that go out to the public comment to get other input.
Well, instead of just a consensus, I would certainly like to have that in form of a motion from you, Commissioner Reardon, if you would allow us to put that in the record as a motion, and I'd like to get a second.
Point of order, you don't need to make a motion till you got, you're not going out to public yet.
Well, we're not, but this is the discussion.
But there's a
and
recommendation from staff.
There's a recommendation. If she wants to add to the recommendation, if he wants to add to the recommendation and he wants to put it in form of a motion as part of what this recommendation is, getting it out to the public. I think go ahead.
So can I ask council?
Yes, sir.
Council, would it be advisable to take action on the motion and then I make an amendment to that motion to include this? Or what's the most practical way to do this?
Your motion can be, you move to adopt staff's recommendation with a specific request to include, when it goes out to public comment, whether there should be a screening threshold above the lowest reporting concentration.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you?
Yes. Well, you got to talk to the chair.
I like your thinking and going before the public with specifics to be brought up during these public hearings. Commissioner Baumgartner and then Commissioner Twitty.
I just want to understand, and maybe the time to do that is after you make your motion, because then there's a second and a discussion, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I just need clarification on what the heck the vote is.
You'll make the motion.
So I was going to make a motion and then add Cho's comment.
Please do that.
All right.
Commissioner. Yeah.
You
So I
finish?
move that the Division of Water Resources, I move that the Water Quality Committee approve to proceed to the EMC with the proposed rules for 15 NCAC 2H 0293, 15 NCAC 02B 512 for PFOS, P4, and Gen X monitoring and minimization plans, as well as add additional, require staff to seek public comment on Commissioner Reardon's statements that were pretty long and lengthy.
It is long. Do you want to read it again? For the record.
All right. I move that the commission direct staff to solicit public comment on whether it would be scientifically defensible and advisable to establish a screening threshold above the lowest reportable concentration, the LRC, or PFAS, PFOA, and Genex that could serve as a trigger for ongoing monitoring and minimization requirements. Public input should also address potential thresholds, analytical variability, we talked about that, background levels in alignment with federal guidance and risk-based approaches. What I'm looking for is more community input into this.
So the motion is to proceed to the EMC as written here and include requests for additional public comment as noted.
Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second that. Here we are, bro.
Didn't see you there. Commissioner Yarborough, second. Any further discussion? Commissioner Twitty?
So this will go to the full EMC, and then if the EMC votes it to public comment, is that when this would be solicited?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So this would be, we're going to solicit public comment as part of the normal process of a rule,
Yes.
but there's going to be specific requests that please comment on this.
Yes, from the department, be part of the department's ask in the public hearing.
Okay, I
Yes.
understand.
Yes. And on the
Ex officio comment here.
yes,
While we're soliciting. No, I don't mean, one of the things that I wanted the whole commission to have, we got a motion in a second, by the way. One of the things I want the commission to have, and the committee chair and I talked about this, is two extremes are going on that don't directly affect this. One is in the federal government, they're debating what the MCLs for PFAS, and I think y'all had some general information on that, so you can kind of see the declaratory statements, at least one or two of them that's been made. The other thing is the RAINS Act, which I don't think that affects what we do is right or wrong, but it is a new statute that affects us a little bit. One of the concerns that I have, and I throw this to committee just for discussion, and I've talked to several of you about it, is this one's 129 million and it's everything. When you look at, or 128, if you look at 1.4, we had trouble with OSBM approving that. We directed staff to do everything and they just did a subset. And it's only I say, but it's 20-some million dollars. So there's $100 million of difference in there. And I think a question that comes to my mind as I look at these two emerging contaminants is how do we explain to the public, we're sampling everything on one and we're only sampling a small subset on the other, and that's worth $100 million. Now, that's just me at a macro level. So should we be, in some sense, sampling just a subset here in the first step, or should we be sampling everything? Because we're going to come up with something on 1.4 that looks very different than this. And I'm just throwing that out there for
That's
y'all's discussion.
right.
Do we want comment on that?
If there's a comment on that specific question, Chairman, if a committee member wants to comment on that, yes.
No, or do we
If-
want public comment for the other one?
Oh,
to discuss that, or do
absolutely.
you
Yes,
want a
sir.
public comment for that too? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just asking,
That's where we are.
because there's a big difference in the two approaches.
Yes. Commissioner Ellis.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the amended rule. But my understanding is that my motion needs to be voted on before I can make it. Is that the way Roberts, right? No?
For what purpose do you want to make the motion?
To
The amendment.
integrate some of what the chair just said and expand on the public comment that Commissioner Reardon has moved to include.
You're just moving to amend the motion, not the rule. You're moving to amend the motion.
Yes.
Correct.
So make your motion
Yeah.
to amend.
The motion, if you'd like.
Okay.
Yes, it sounds,
I make a motion to amend. Do I?
yes, to amend the
Okay.
motion. What is your amendment?
The amendment is for the commission to direct staff to solicit public comment on whether the applicability of the PFAS monitoring and minimization rules should be limited to industrial dischargers and associated SIC and NAICS codes known to be linked to PFAS use or discharge. Public input should address the trade-offs between this broad and more targeted applicability in terms of environmental benefit, cost effectiveness, and administrative feasibility.
Is there a second?
I'll second, but in essence, what you're saying is you want to see if there should be additional industries. It should be limited to 6 and NACs, or should it be all industry, all SRUs and IDDs?
Or fewer.
Yeah, or fewer.
$100 million is a lot of somebody else's money.
Just trying to clarify what the motion, yes. I second.
Second. Okay, there's a second on the floor to the amendment to the motion. So we'll have discussion on that amendment. There is one piece that you had mentioned about the, you see what you got there, what'd you write down? The SICs, NAICS. There was some mention about the presentation about SIC, but you're saying, and that was in the cost piece, if I'm not mistaken.
OSBM, yes.
Yeah, on the OSBM piece and what Karen had, Preston had given in her presentation. But it falls on my discussion piece, and my thoughts are that falls into what the OSBM memorandum was on that. Or the last paragraph in that OSBM is a major contributor to the uncertainty around the cost and benefits. And that was a cost piece on that slide that she presented, and she wants to, I think you said all there. Industrial discharges associated with SIC and AICS, which is the North American Industry Classification System on those codes. But when you look at that last paragraph on the memorandum that OSBM gave with their RIA, it's a major contributor to the uncertainty around the cost and benefits is the lack of a defined performance metric for minimization plans within the proposed rule. And I think that's probably what you're hitting on, Commissioner Jaspers, is yes. And they say, go on to say, in the absence of specific targets or percent reduction requirements, we recommend, it's OSBM here, we recommend that the commission expressly seek public comment on this issue. Specifically, what metrics should control authorities use to assess the effectiveness of minimization plans? That was a question. This information will offer further insight into the magnitude and nature of the expected cost and benefits, providing a clear basis for evaluating the likelihood that the rules as written will produce benefits that justify the cost. I think that's what we've been doing the whole time. For this last hour is trying to orchestrate all of this with these amendments is to get it out to public, get everything out there and get everybody aboard. And let's discuss this in our first phase of getting a solution and doing it the right way. So that was just my little piece, get on my soapbox, but, so any discussion on that in particular? Any discussion from committee members on that amendment to the motion?
So just so we're all clear,
Go ahead.
the only thing that we're discussing right now is Commissioner Ellison's motion to amend. And the amendment is to request solicitation of public comment on whether the rule should be limited to industrial dischargers associated, I don't know the right, with certain SIC and NAICS codes, right? Generally. Okay. So there's a motion and a second as to whether we're going to add that requirement to the original motion. Y'all will need to, you can discuss and then you'll need to vote that amendment up or down before you go back to the original motion.
Right. Any other discussions on that amendment? Not a call for a vote. All those in favor of Commissioner Ellison's amendment, please say aye. All those opposed? Thank you. Can we go back to the motion that was on the floor?
Yeah, so now the motion being considered, sorry if I can, Chair.
By Commissioner Reardon.
Oh, no, that,
It's-
it's actually Tim's motion.
Yeah, it is.
Tim.
It's Tim's motion. So the motion on the floor is essentially to adopt staff's recommendation
Yes.
with two additional asks. One, that public comment be solicited for whether a screening, to establish a screening threshold above the lowest reporting concentration, and whether the rule would benefit from being limited to industrial discharges associated with certain codes.
Yes.
So that is the motion on the floor. That is what is being considered now.
Yes. Any discussion? I'll call for a vote. All those approved, please say aye. All those opposed, like sign. Thank you. Okay, that's PFAS. And we'll go on to our next action item. Is 1,4, dioxin. That is, let's see, additional supporting documents. Action, request approval. This is number 2, action item. Request approval to proceed to the EMC with the proposed 1,4 dioxin monitoring and minimization rule 15A NCAC 02H .0924 and 15A NCAC 02B .0513. Bridget Shelton, TWR.
So is this coming up on the EMC tomorrow? So then it has to be a 30-day waiver.
I did not do that. We get it out of committee. Commissioner Reardon just reminded me that getting that out of the committee, I have talked with Chairman Solomon and last Thursday, Friday, about possibly getting a 30-day waiver on that. That will certainly be up to him, but we would like to, if we got it out of committee today, I was requesting respectfully, Chairman Solomon, that we get this on a 30-day waiver tomorrow.
You don't have to make a motion for that.
No, we just would like that to be on the record that we would ask you to do that.
Yes.
We're ready to move forward with that. Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. You're up.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Bridget Shelton with the Division of Water Resources. I'm here today to request approval to proceed to the EMC with proposed 1,4-dioxane monitoring and minimization rules, 15A NCAC 02H0924 and 15A NCAC 02B 0513. So some background, 1,4-dioxane is an organic synthetic chemical that has been used as a chlorinated solvent stabilizer and as a solvent in specialized industrial and manufacturing processes. It may enter the environment where it is produced or used as a solvent through discharges to surface water and groundwater. The Water Quality Committee passed a motion at their March 2025 meeting directing staff to complete a 1,4-dioxane monitoring and minimization rule and an associated regulatory impact analysis in order to understand and characterize the extent of 1,4-dioxane levels from MPDES dischargers. Separate rules were needed to address the motion. Rule 02B 0513 requires monitoring and minimization for affected industrial direct dischargers and requires monitoring for POTWs. Rule 02H 0924 requires monitoring and minimization for affected indirect dischargers, including significant industrial users or SIUs, which go to a POTW with a pretreatment program. These proposed rules target focus on entities associated with 1,4-dioxane rather than requiring all permittees and SIUs to perform baseline sampling. The proposed rules specify the affected permit types by using the TRI program or the Toxics Release Inventory Program industry codes that are likely to be associated with 1,4-dioxane. Here is a summary of the rules. I apologize, these slides are very wordy, but just walking through the rule here. So these rules are similar to the PFAS monitoring and minimization plan rules you all just saw, but as previously stated, they do target likely sources of 1,4-dioxane. So the proposed rules outline requirements for direct dischargers and indirect dischargers. For the direct dischargers, Rule 02B 0513, industrial direct dischargers with an individual permit will be contacted within 60 days of the rule effective date. These facilities will be required to do baseline monitoring quarterly for 1 year. Ongoing sampling will be required if any quarterly sample results has a concentration above the lowest reporting concentration. Ongoing sampling will continue quarterly until all concentrations are reported as non-detects in 4 consecutive samples. If determined to need ongoing sampling, the industrial direct discharger will be required to develop a minimization plan. A minimization plan is a strategy to reduce or eliminate pollutants at the source before they are discharged into the environment. This includes identifying BMPs or best management practices. The industrial direct discharger will report activities to the division annually, and an exception may be requested by a facility from ongoing monitoring and minimization plan requirements if certain criteria are met. That exemption is laid out in the rule, but it is essentially if it can be shown that there is no increase in 1,4-dioxane due to the activities of the discharger. The direct dischargers rule O2B 0513 also has requirements for POTWs with an approved pretreatment program. These facilities will be required to do baseline monitoring quarterly for 1 year. Ongoing sampling will be required if any quarterly sampling result has a concentration above the lowest reporting concentration. And ongoing sampling will continue quarterly until all concentrations are reported as non-detects in 4 consecutive samples. For indirect dischargers, O2H 0924 has requirements for significant industrial users or SIUs. SIUs will be contacted within 60 days of the rule effective date. These facilities will be required to do baseline monitoring quarterly for 1 year at each effluent station discharged to the POTW. The POTW will determine if ongoing sampling is required. Ongoing sampling will be required if any quarterly sampling result has a concentration above the lowest reporting concentration. Ongoing sampling of the effluent will continue semi-annually until the concentrations are reported as non-detects in 4 consecutive samples. If determined to need ongoing sampling, the SIU will be required to develop a minimization plan. POTWs will require annual reporting of activities in the SIU permits. And again, an exception may be requested by an SIU from ongoing monitoring and minimization plan requirements if certain criteria are met. So to estimate the fiscal impacts of these rules for the regulatory impact analysis or the RIA, the following approach was taken. So the potentially affected permittees and related sources were identified. We evaluated the 1,4-dioxane data for each permit and related source to determine the potential for needing to continue monitoring and develop a minimization plan. We then determined the costs for monitoring, developing that minimization plan, and implementing the plan. And then the fiscal impacts for private and public entities were projected. And then we reviewed the potential impacts to DEQ programs and analyzed benefits qualitatively. The RIA was submitted to OSBM and it was certified on September 3rd, 2025. So moving on to a brief summary of the RIA. So here is the number of anticipated affected sources. So as previously covered under the indirect discharge rule, SIUs that fall within an industry type that is known to be associated with 1,4-dioxane and sends wastewater to POTWs with pretreatment programs will be required to do baseline monitoring. That was found to be 155 facilities. The direct dischargers rules require baseline monitoring for industrial direct dischargers that fall within an industry type that is known to be associated with 1,4-dioxane. This was found to be 34 facilities. And the rule also requires baseline monitoring from POTWs issued through DW with local pretreatment programs with SIUs that fall within an industry type that is known to be associated with 1,4-dioxane. This was found to be 75 facilities. So if the affected entities measure detectable levels of 1,4-dioxane during baseline monitoring, they will be required to continue monitoring. SIUs and industrial direct dischargers will also be required to develop minimization plans. So the sites that would have detectable levels of 1,4-dioxane and therefore be required to continue monitoring and develop these minimization plans were projected by using historical site data or the site's associated industry codes if the data was not available. So here is a summary of the estimated costs and benefits for the proposed rules. The regulatory baseline in this analysis was the absence of the required monitoring and minimization plan development for 1,4-dioxane. So for private sector, monitoring costs included supplies, staff time, and lab fees. Estimated costs also include the development and implementation of a minimization plan for the projected required facilities. Since the costs of implementing a minimization plan can vary based on the facility and the types of BMPs available and chosen by the facility, a range of costs per facility is estimated for this fiscal analysis. Local government estimated costs for POTWs include monitoring, reporting, and staff time to direct and provide support and review the minimization plan development by the SIUs. And then state government estimated costs are largely from staff time needed to review baseline monitoring data, determine and manage the permittees required to develop minimization plans, and review and approve these plans. So the estimated costs to private and public sectors are 23.5 million for monitoring and minimization plan development, and a projected range of 0.05 to over 1 million per site per facility to implement a minimization plan. These proposed rules are projected to provide benefits to the state. These benefits were qualified and include the requirement of mandatory minimization plans for affected facilities and requiring reporting that increases transparency of information for the facilities discharging 1,4-dioxane into surface waters. It is also likely that these requirements will lead to some source reductions of 1,4-dioxane to surface waters. Here is our anticipated rulemaking schedule. We are requesting approval from the committee to proceed to the EMC. We will be requesting a 30-day waiver from the EMC. If approved, we will bring this item to the commission tomorrow and request approval of the rule and the RIA to go to public comment and hearing. If approved, public comment period would be December 2025 through February of next year, 2026. And we anticipate coming back to the EMC in July of 2026. So here's our request today. The Division of Water Resources is requesting approval to proceed to the EMC with the proposed 1,4-dioxane monitoring and minimization rules, 15A NCAC 02H 0924 and 15A NCAC 02B 0513, and the associated regulatory impact analysis.
Thank you, Bridget. Any questions for Bridget or the department before she takes a seat? Commissioner Baumgartner?
Bridget, good presentation. Thank you. Page 6 of the RIA, it says an allowance for a facility to demonstrate 14D detect is in the end, an allowance for a facility to demonstrate for the 14D detect at its intake rather than discharge. And then it says the effect present in the intake will be considered on a case-by-case basis at the request of a facility. As someone has spent their career in compensatory mitigation, and government agency saying case-by-case worries me. What exactly is case-by-case in this situation?
Hi, I'm Julie Grape, Deputy Director for Division Water Resources. So in the case by case, we're allowing the POTWs to take a look at some flexibility there. They might just, instead of each facility testing their influent, they might say the POTW might test their water distribution line at where they distribute it and allow permittees perhaps to use those numbers compared against their discharge to the POTW. Whereas more in a direct discharge area that we permit right here from DWR, they would probably have to take the raw influent sample and then compare it to their effluent. But wanted to try and give them a little flexibility on how they accomplish that task.
Captures variability in facility is what you're saying, from facility to facility.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any cost savings to industry by running the PFAS and 14D monitor minimization plans at the same time? Is there any economy of scale, because some of the same industries are going to have to be affected by both rules, I would imagine? Is that true? If they're developing minimization plans for PFAS, is there and reductions, because it said in the RA that some of the reduction strategies for PFAS would also reduce 1,4 as well.
Yeah, but the treatment isn't always the same, but you could hire one set of consultants to come in and test all your process wastewaters at the same time and just get all the analyses done and have the same, the consulting firm help them with all the decisions. But it's not always 100% a correlation between those who have PFAS and those who have 1,4-dioxane.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Commissioner Twitty?
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Commissioner Ellison?
What is the detection limit for 1,4-dioxane?
Depending on the lab, go, but 1 microgram per liter.
1, okay. And did the department engage stakeholders in, as this whole 1,4-dioxane rule-making process has evolved?
Well, the minimization process, we did initially involve stakeholders in it. Then the commission wanted us to proceed and move on. So we had a couple meetings, but that was it. Some comments were submitted, but we were told to go ahead with the rules and let them comment during the public notice period if it was moved forward.
And who did you meet with?
Who did we meet with specifically?
Well, I'm not necessarily, I mean, what types of entities were you meeting with?
We primarily met with the Pretreatment Consortium, the Water Quality Association. We've also met with that group of NGOs. I don't know if that was the PFAS minimization or 1,4, to be honest. I can't remember.
But there has been outreach. Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you.
You mentioned, I got one quick question. You mentioned the one from reducing, so the cost, the facility, and they do what they have to do and monitoring and minimizing it from on 1,4 from 1. Then what? What if they reduce it below 1? If science is getting better, won't that affect the cost?
I'm not sure I understand the question,
Well,
Cherokee.
Look
If they
at-
do
I'm
what?
just looking at the health versus the cost benefit or the cost benefit, then you mentioned it was, detection level was 4.
It's 1
Was
microgram per liter.
1. So if chemists lower that detection below that and it goes to 0, then what's the cost?
If they lower the detection limit,
Yeah.
what's the cost of what? The
Lower-
test or
Yeah,
lowering it?
If it's likely that they're going to lower the cost and get better at what they do and the science is better and the chemists get below 1, isn't that
I
the
thought for the
goal?
commission to decide what level you want them to treat it to. We've had many discussions on that.
Yeah, I know. I remember.
It's been 1 for a good number of years, though. I won't
Yeah.
say the science is changing on a daily basis of any sort.
Okay. Commissioner Ellison?
Just quickly, did EPA where did the number 0.35 as a standard come from? Was that an EPA recommendation?
It was the EPA value for 1 in a million cancer risk.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for the department?
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and make a motion if there are no other comments.
Let's have some discussion. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. So maybe it won't take us as long on this one as it did the PFAS, but certainly it is different. But, you know, the whole thing for the committee is that we were waiting to get the committee members total on the committee. We're getting everybody here today, so let's discuss it. Let's debate it. It's something that we've discussed. Now it's time to hopefully get it out today. But before we have any motions on the floor, let's discuss. Is there something here that we need to discuss that, Commissioner Twitty?
I'll just, I guess, go on record. I have the same concerns with this rule that I have about the PFAS rule, that there's a lot of faith involved in this one. They're very similar rules, obviously. There is no standard, as I understand the rule, there's no requirement that they get to a certain level. So let's say they have a detection, they develop a minimization plan, we're going to reduce by 50%. Number one, who decides if 50% is good enough? I think that's putting a lot of onus on the control authorities to decide, is 50% okay for that one? Is 70% appropriate for that one? I think that's going to be a bit of a conundrum. If they don't meet their 50%, maybe they don't reduce any. First year they do their monitoring, they don't reduce by any. They haven't made any reduction. Oh, sorry, we'll redo our minimization plan and put some new stuff in there. Next year, same thing. There's no bar, there's no standard or requirement that they ever meet a target. I think that's maybe what Commissioner Jaspers was trying or saying as well. So I think that's the concern that we've got on the way this rule is structured. Again, I'll say my same comments I did for PFAS. I do think this advances down the field, and it's worthwhile because I think it's probably the best we can do at this day and time, but I do hope there will be more in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Ellison?
I think even more so than PFAS, the science on 1,4-dioxane is fraught with vast uncertainty, particularly regarding effects on human health. When the department first raised this issue, documents that were provided to us better understand 1,4-dioxane did not conclusively demonstrate severe public health. It's a likely carcinogen, and yet animal studies and epidemiological studies did not necessarily support draconian regulation. One in particular was the epidemiological study of people who work with 1,4-dioxane routinely in their job or in their factory or whatever, and there no ill health effects were found in that population. The OSBM approval memorandum mentioned that there's a link to nasal cancer, and that was because a bunch of rats were fed pure 1,4-dioxane. That's all they were allowed to breathe, and they got nose cancer. So the science is, I would suggest, inconclusive regarding the toxicology and the risk to human health and the environment. Some studies say 1,4-dioxane breaks down to a couple of innocuous compounds and comes out rapidly in your waste. So I think, again, the science will continue to evolve. The treatment practices will continue to evolve while we as a state find out where and how bad the problem is. One of the nascent technologies I read about the other night works both for PFAS and 1,4-dioxane. So there are a lot of new things on the horizon that may solve this problem cost effectively. And again, this is an interim step.
Thank you, Mr. Ellison. Any other? Commissioner Jaspers?
Yeah, so science is evolving, so thanks to that. And I think from what I'm reading in the European Union, the science is evolving into the other direction. They're now classifying it as a 1B carcinogen rather than a 2B, which is what the US and IARC does. So they're moving in a slightly different direction. And the animal data, to me, looks pretty convincing that it is a carcinogen. The human data may not be there, but that doesn't mean it's not there. So to me, 1,4-dioxane is something that needs to be regulated.
Okay. Thank you.
Ready to go ahead and make a motion?
Commissioner Baumgartner?
So I'm going to make the motion, but I'm going to add 2 additional public comments that we'd love to see it as well. One would be considering above the trigger. Would it be appropriate to have a trigger above the LRC? And the other one, since this is kind of different than PFAS, the detection or the monitoring is only limited to SICs and NAICs. So the motion is to request to proceed to the EMC with the proposed 1,4-dioxane monitoring and minimization rules for 15 NCAC 02H 09224 and 15 NA NCAC 02B 0513 and associated regulatory impact analysis. And also in that, to seek public comment on whether the lowest reporting concentration for 1,4-dioxane would be appropriate as a trigger or it's something different. Also, public comment on should this be expanded beyond SICs and NAICs? to address potential benefits, cost, implementation changes.
Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Ellison, second. Now discussion. Commissioner Twitty.
Just to confirm, so those two amendments are analogous to what the PFAS, is that they are requesting specific public comment. There is no proposed change to the rules being proposed in these amendments.
It's one specific motion, no amendment. In the motion, we're requesting 2 public comments as part of the motion. But yes, similar to
It's not in the rule book.
My understanding is that we're directing staff, along with this motion, we're directing staff to make sure that these are titles or title pieces that will
part of
be
the
asked
comment
of, yes. And again, it goes into to the narrative of the OSBM commentary or the recommendation, their recommendation was one remaining area of concern, however, is the lack of clarity to define performance metrics for minimization plans within the proposed rules.
Mr.
And-
Chair, it really just has nothing to do with OSBM. It is just when this rule goes out for public comment, there are 2 questions that we would like public comment back on in addition to the rule. So
Thank you. And there's a second. Commissioner Ellison.
I
Just
just
go ahead.
respond to Commissioner Tweedy's question a little bit. What the request is that when the rule and RIA, as presented with no changes, are published for public comment, when it goes into the North Carolina Register, it's published on DEQ's website, on the EMC's website, we're going to solicit public comment in general, but in addition, we're going to request public comment on these 2 items. So we're looking for specific feedback in addition to just general feedback. But yes, you're correct. Nothing in the rule or RIA is changing.
Thank you.
There's been a second. Commissioner Ellison, we're still in discussion. Well, my part in discussion, again, it's going back to what the OSBM memorandum was at the end, is that been speaking with all the committee members and Commissioner Solomon and Vice Chair Ellison, is that if we look at their last paragraph, they're suggesting that all that we've been discussing for the last year is get it out to public, and that's to be effective. And it says, such as percentage reduction targets or other measurable indicators, it is difficult to fully assess the likely effectiveness for such plans in delivering the intent risk reductions. We therefore recommend that the commission solicit public comment on appropriate metrics for evaluating minimization plan performance. That's what we're doing. Incorporating stakeholder input on this issue would help reduce uncertainties and provide a clear basis for evaluating the likelihood that the rules as written will generate benefits that justify their cost. That's my part of the discussion. Commissioner Ellison?
Just one thing to add, and we heard from one POTW that has an entirely residential contributing, whatever it's called, no industry in their system. And they had 1,4-dioxane greater than 20. And it's in shampoo and food packaging, and it's ubiquitous, just like PFAS. And I think that's one of the benefits of monitoring and minimization. We're not putting a draconian standard on somebody who can't do anything about what they're, what's coming into their system. So I just wanted to add that there are benefits to this approach that haven't necessarily come up here in the past hour.
Okay, any other discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break real quick for water and be right back and finish up with our information items.
Let's go with it. Yep. Let's go.
Finally, you got it out of here. But you know what?
We had 16,000 on one air quality standard years ago. Correct. Major change. It's not, it's, yes, 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 yes. And I think in the purest way, in the simple rule, it goes out and it comes all the way back. And you can look at it and say, we want to change this. And then we decide whether that's major or minor, right? There are other rules that would come back that did get halfway in the process. It's like the noose buffer rules way back in the day. They got out there with 3 hearing officers, had 3 public hearings.
The
And they saw, they said,
motions, we
they
just,
came right
okay,
back to
you
the
got
EMC
them?
and said, look,
Okay, we just,
it's flowing this way, it's gonna change, we don't have.
we
this
just want to
model
make sure
in the
that
regulatory
everybody
impact
understands.
Or this will
It's
constitute a
not a
major
problem.
change, it's
I'm
not
glad to
advertised.
do it, to make
So at
sure
that
that
point, the EMC just said, stop.
what you got
Let's
is
debate
consistent
it
with
based on
everything.
partial comments,
I
because we
mean,
know
the
we're
last motion,
let's
it
get staff
seems
to make the changes
broaden it.
and then
They- they're
renotice
trying
it,
to
and send it
narrow
out.
it.
That's the way to save time.
The difference
Instead of
between.
waiting for the whole hearing officer report. Yeah, you would have to add on to the RA process.
We've identified and
If it's
sourced
fiscal.
the rule to
See,
those.
some of those changes would only
So
be
for PFAS.
if
You want to see
you added a
it
clause in
reduced.
there that wasn't advertised, somebody didn't understand what the rule was about. See, that's what they see on too. It's like purpose and need on EIS.
Okay.
People will say,
It's just asking for.
people will say,
Right?
Yeah,
you didn't advertise this, so I
consistency
didn't come out and
on 2 different approaches,
if I
right?
knew you were gonna be talking about,
Okay.
hey, gotta call you back.
Richard, I've got it, and
Okay.
I'll work with Jennifer to make sure.
So one major change is when you advertise something and you put something on in there.
You did not. Thank you for providing me this.
Absolutely.
It makes my life a lot
That
easier
I
rather than
can't-
trying to like hack out as
That we
people
just
are
didn't know to
talking.
come out and talk
Next item on the agenda. Could everyone take their seat, please? Thank you. Thank you. No, don't have, not even a name tag. We're ready to get started. Am I on here? We good? Okay. Update on stormwater rules readoption, Mike Lawyer, Demler.
I'm going
Good
to
to go,
start.
Mike.
All right. Good
Thank you.
afternoon. Yeah, Mike Lawyer. I'm the Stormwater Program Supervisor with Demler, Division of Energy, Mineral and Land Resources. Information item about the particular stormwater rules up for review and readoption. So those specific stormwater rules included here, 15A NCAC 02H 1000. That's our state or post-construction stormwater management rules for development projects. 15A NCAC 02H .0126, 0150, 0151, and 0153, specific to our MPDS MS4 program. And 15A NCAC 02B .0621 to 0624, water supply, watershed protection. So we are proposing just no new rules, just clarifications to the existing rules to provide better understanding of those regulatory requirements for applicants and their consultants, and in desire to help kind of streamline our review process of their permit applications. I have provided just a few examples from those rules and kind of the clarifications that we're proposing. I don't know if you want me to read through each one or just leave it on the screen for a moment.
Due to time restraints, you can condense it however you like.
Okay, so just quickly, a couple examples there. First one, you can see that, some words are struck through and then new stuff underlined. This will be put in the proper, OAH format. So definitions, so we have a definition for design volume. Previously said the amount of stormwater runoff that an SCM or series of SCMs is designed to treat, either through, and then it was on to runoff treatment or runoff volume match, as those terms are defined elsewhere. Proposing to change it to means the minimum required volume of stormwater runoff that an SCM or series of SCMs is designed to treat, either through runoff treatment or runoff volume match. Another example there, minimum treatment volume. We're proposing to clarify that to mean the volume of stormwater runoff generated from all of the built upon area of a project at build out that an SCM, stormwater control measure, or series of SCMs must treat in order to satisfy. I think I've got a couple other examples. Those are from definitions. This from our general MDCs, minimum design criteria for all projects. Previously or currently says for all stormwater control measures. Just clarifying that it applies to all projects. Maintenance access. Again, just some additional verbiage. Just clarifications, nothing really new or groundbreaking there.
I've got a question on that.
Yes, sir.
When you struck through stormwater control measures for all projects, that's pretty vague. Is that on a case by case, or how do you determine that when you?
Yeah, so
It
the
could be
reason.
any and every project.
Yeah, so the reason we did that is in the post-construction stormwater rules, high-density projects require stormwater control measures, engineered stormwater control measures. Low-density projects, usually stormwater runoff is dispersed through vegetated areas or vegetated conveyance swales. And there are design criteria for those low-density type measures, if you will, or BMPs, but they're not specifically SCMs. So we want to clarify that the design criteria applies to all projects, not just limited to stormwater control measures.
Okay. Yeah, I understand the low density and versus the high density and I was just wondering why for stormwater control measures in all projects, and then you specify the projects as being high or low. But you're just crossing out stormwater control measures. Interpretation of the rule, I was just thinking developers.
Yeah, so all projects that are within an area subject to post-construction stormwater permitting, again, would fall into either low density or high density categories. And there are design criteria for low density measures, like vegetated conveyance swales, 3-to-1 side slopes, for example. So that's why we felt, kind of replacing way it currently says, it implies, there's a minimum design criteria for just stormwater control measures, which would exclude vegetated conveyance swales. So we're proposing to change it to all stormwater, all projects.
Okay.
Does that satisfy your question? Okay.
Sure.
As you can see further down there for like easements, previously or currently says all SCMs and associated maintenance accesses, but we do require, recorded drainage easements for conveyance swales. So including, the wording there that's underlined, all SCMs, stormwater control systems, collection system, vegetated conveyances. So just kind of further clarifying that there are design criteria, whether it's low density or high density.
It's so small, it's hard for me to read it from here. Does that say vegetation, vegetated?
Vegetated conveyances?
So you've added that?
Yes, we're proposing to add that.
Do you go into defining vegetated landscaping? I'm just thinking the interpretation of that word is.
So a conveyance is specifically, basically the stormwater runoff from impervious surface, how that stormwater runoff is being conveyed sort of off or away from the project site to receiving waters or adjacent property. It's not the same thing as landscaping.
Okay. Commissioner Twitty.
So these edits are being done by Demler staff? I
Yes.
assume. And are they based on comments and working through permits with folks on points of confusion that have happened to try to, is that how this is kind of come about?
Pretty much exactly, yeah. We've tried to, just from experience of consultants and applicants and the information in their applications, which are a lot of times lacking to be administratively complete or to meet our design criteria and regulations, just to try to further clarify, to help applicants and their consultants know what it is we're asking them to provide.
So it's all in the effort of clarification. It's not adding any new.
That's correct.
requirements.
We are not adding any new requirements.
Okay.
Okay. I think I have one more example. This is specifically the minimum design criteria for wet ponds. Currently says a forebay that meets the following specifications shall be included. We are proposing a clarification there. A forebay shall be provided at the inlet to the wet pond. Seems, kind of logical, but occasionally we get applications where they're showing a forebay elsewhere.
Commissioner Ellison?
Will that require 4 bays if you have multiple inlets? Do you need to have a 4 bay at each inlet?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. I was looking at B, bottom elevation.
Yeah, we
At the
we
exit.
seem to get a lot of confusion on the way the rule currently is,
Yes.
where it just says the entrance shall be deeper than the 4 bay exit. So again, just clarifying the bottom elevation at the entrance shall be deeper than the bottom elevation at the exit. Still working on putting together the RIA, but we feel like the fiscal impact will be negligible, if any, to the regulated community or local or state government, again, because we're not adding new rules, just clarifying existing rules. And like I mentioned earlier, we're currently working on that RIA to provide to OSBM in the proper format. I believe that.
So will we see the RIA?
Yes, that will be, once we get it, I guess, go through OSBM, that would then be provided, I believe, at the January meeting.
Can we see that before it goes to the the OSBM?
Sure.
Is there a health benefit, cost benefit on that?
The cost benefit would be to us, to the division, in, again, hopefully streamlining our review process. Specifically about the post-construction program, the water supply watershed is really implemented by the local governments that have a water supply. MS4, again, implemented by local governments. So the post-construction permitting program that we do, that Daimler does, is we have our statutory timelines, and that is one of our programs that we get probably the most, I hesitate to say it, but disagreement on or pushback, and people kind of complaining that it's taking long, which is usually due to the level of application we get.
Yes, sir.
It's usually not complete from the first submittal. We have to do additional information requests, sometimes 2 or 3 back and forth. So the cost benefit would be, the idea would be to reduce staff review time and get these permits out faster.
Okay.
Because we would get, hopefully we'd get better application packages.
Okay.
Again, there should not be any kind of change to the consulting world or developers.
So this is information today, so you're thinking of getting it back as an action item here to this committee?
Correct.
When? You think,
January.
right? Okay. You think the RIA will be finished by then?
Yes. And just for my clarification, you are requesting that we provide that to this committee prior to providing it to OSBM, or in conjunction with?
In conjunction with, please.
Sure. I believe that's, yeah, that was my last slide, so.
Any questions from the committee? As stormwater's interpretation of that rule, I think we're making it cleaner and more efficient for the interpretation of these developers. But it's a huge undertaking, but I think we've done a good job thus far. But there's a lot of development, and certainly making it easier, permitting quicker, not hanging out there is a good thing.
Mhm.
But Commissioner Ellison?
I'd like the committee a chance to review the RIA before it goes to OSBM. There's an awful lot of stormwater expertise on this committee. And I think that I would just appreciate the chance to look at it in case we have productive comments that would improve the process with OSBM.
Sure.
For that's well taken. For clarity and transparency, all committee members need to receive the RIA. And it's certainly okay for me to have all committee members to see it before you send it to OSBM.
Okay.
But we don't want to hold it up, but we would, I think, love to see it. And like you said, it's a lot of expertise up here. And if that's not an issue with the director.
I think we step up.
Okay,
I'll certainly
we're good.
mention it to him, yeah. Just,
So you think that'll be in December, latter part, or middle of December?
my goal is to have that drafted by the end of this month,
Okay, good.
but no later than December. No later than end of this year, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, just to kind of reiterate, as far as a regulatory impact or fiscal analysis, it should be negligible.
Okay,
There really should not be any fiscal impact.
thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Excellent. Update on Jordan Lake rules readoption and nutrient response model. Ellie Ron.
Thank you.
DWR. Elle, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I'm here to provide a background on the Jordan Lake rule readoption process to date and introduce the new Jordan Lake model, which will be presented in a little bit more detail in January. There you go. So the watershed is located in the Upper Cape Fear Basin and includes all or part of 8 counties and 25 municipalities, including Greensboro and Durham. For a quick background and history, the watershed has had this comprehensive set of nutrient management rules adopted back in 2008. And the point of these rules are to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus loading to the lake to meet a chlorophyll A standard. Since its adoption, there have been session laws modifying and delaying these rules, notably new development and stage 2 of the existing development stormwater rule are not currently implemented. Also, starting in 2016, session laws mandated additional research, including the UNC collaboratory studies of Jordan water quality, as well as a new lake model. So the collaboratory reports were presented to the Water Quality Committee in March and July of 2020. The final lake model was completed and released for public review in 2024. Initial results were presented to the Water Quality Committee in November of 2023. Okay, so what is this new model? It's a material-based mechanistic lake nutrient response model, meaning its objective is to track the fate of nutrients in a simulated lake system and compare different nitrogen and phosphorus ratios in order to see the impact on phytoplankton populations in the reservoir. This model has advanced high-resolution model grid, extensive DWR lake water quality data, and meets calibration criteria. It found that the lake is more sensitive to phosphorus reduction, and overall significant nutrient reductions are needed to meet this chlorophyll A standard. So once we received the model report, the DWR non-point source planning branch began our informal stakeholder engagement process for the rule readoption. And the purpose of this stakeholder engagement is to get feedback on current rule implementation as well as receive feedback on new concept development. So we've had 15 technical advisory group meetings, 3 all-party meetings, and participated in all of the JLO or Jordan Lake One Water meetings. We are currently revising the rule drafts with stakeholder input and exploring fiscal note development. We plan to return to the Water Quality Committee with an info item in March and then and in May of next year. So the rule proposals that we plan to present to you all next year are based on this mandated update to the Jordan Lake Nutrient Response Model. State statute requires the EMC approve this model, so we will be requesting approval of the model in January in a presentation. So thank you very much.
Any questions for Ellie from committee members? Commissioner?
Is the draft rule available now? Or-
We're still in a drafting phase, incorporating some stakeholder feedback that we got during our stakeholder technical advisory groups.
Okay. Did the collaboratory do the model or did they farm it out?
The
I just
collab,
don't remember.
yeah, so the UNC Charlotte professor as a part of the UNC collaboratory, faculty experts led the model.
Okay.
Commissioner Ellison?
Didn't the Corps of Engineers say that Jordan Lake would forever be overrun with nutrients, that there was no way to build it and maintain it without having high nutrient problems?
I don't believe that that statement's been made.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'll find it. I know that.
I'm in-
It's in their EIS.
Saying.
1984.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you so much.
Next, information item, update on Falls Lake. Alex Toss. Upper Neuse River Basin Association.
Good afternoon.
Good
I'm
afternoon,
Alex Matos on behalf of the Upper Neuse River Basin Association. The executive director of the association, Forrest Westall, wasn't able to join us today, but he asked that I extend his gratitude for allowing us this opportunity to share. The Upper Neuse River Basin Association is comprised of the local governments, utilities, and soil and water conservation districts that drain to Falls Lake. We also have an active external stakeholders who participate in our process, and we're very grateful to those folks. They represent local, state, and federal organizations and agencies. The current falls rules were passed in 2011, and they're based on a lake response model that was developed by DWR. The rules include 2 stages of nutrient reductions, and those are relative to the loading that was entering the lake in 2006. That's our baseline year. There's an adaptive management provision in the rules that allows for a party to generate supplemental nutrient modeling and re-examine the rules. The UNRBA began its reexamination process in 2011 and followed the requirements in the rules for developing the planning documents and getting the DWR approvals that are required. We did a 4-year monitoring study followed by a multi-year modeling study where we developed a watershed as well as several lake models. We spent 2 years working with our members, coming up with recommendations for the Falls Lake rules, the readoption process, and we've been working on that since late 2024. So far, $11 million of local money has been used to fund this project, and we've had an open process and a lot of strong stakeholder engagement throughout. Like the Jordan Lake rules, there are 2 regulations that require the EMC to approve the supplemental modeling that we've put together. Ellie discussed 143.215.1, which requires that the commission approve the model and then it be used to set the mass load limits and be incorporated into the nutrient management plans, and that the model needs to be capable of predicting the impact of nitrogen and phosphorus on the surface waters. Then there's also the Falls Rules Adaptive Management provision. That's item 5F of the Falls Rules that says a person may develop these models and submit them for commission approval. Item 5F lists several additional requirements to accompany that submittal. The first is to obtain division review and approval of any monitoring study, as well as the description of the modeling framework. So you can see the next 3 bullets there outline and provide links to our DWR approved monitoring plan, monitoring quality assurance project plan, and also the description of the modeling framework. The second requirement is that the modeling be conducted in accordance with the quality assurance project plan, and you can see that document listed there. The rules require that at least 3 years of monitoring data be collected from Falls Lake after the rules had been implemented, and the UNRBA collected 4 years of data and summarized it in their 2019 report. And then finally, we were required to submit our modeling products to the agency, and you can see the documentation and submittal of the modeling files occurred in 2023 and 2024. We're very grateful to the many, many organizations and people who provided us data and information and conducted research studies that helped improve the models. Those folks, organizations, are listed on the left, and they not only provided us the data, but helped us ensure that we put it into the model accurately. We did submit our modeling reports and modeling files to DWR, and an email from Karen Higgins from July 2024 confirmed that our warmth watershed model had followed the DWR approved quality assurance project plan. WARMP stands for the Watershed Analysis Risk Management Framework. And then in February of 2025, we received an email from John Heisman confirming similarly for the warmth and the EFDC lake models. EFDC is the Environmental Fluid Dynamics Code. Those are the 2 models that DWR had used in their original modeling to develop the rules, but we updated it with additional information, newer information. We're fortunate to have both sets of models to be able to improve our decision-making. DWR's modeling represents 2005 to 2007 timeframe, which was before the rules were implemented, and it represents very dry to average rainfall conditions. So the upper part of the lake, up around I-85, actually went dry down to the old riverbed during that period. UNRBA's watershed and lake modeling represents 2015 to 2018, so that's several years after the rules had been implemented, and it represents an average to very wet rainfall condition. The UNRBA's watershed and lake models are linked, and so that allows us to run scenarios in the watershed and determine the impacts on lake water quality. So for example, we can change the amount of rainfall, or we can do something hypothetical like change all of the land use to forest. Once we completed our modeling process, we moved into the rules readoption process beginning in September 2023. The UNRBA developed consensus principles in a separate document called Concepts and Principles for the revised rules to help guide this readoption process. The UNRBA itself unanimously approved these 2 documents, and each individual local governing body also unanimously approved these documents. We submitted our final modeling files and reports and conducted trainings with the division during this period. And in November 2024, we held a joint forum with DWR to discuss the rules readoption process and our schedule. Beginning in December 2024, the UNRBA started its intensive work group process. We formed 4 work groups to correspond to each of the 4 parts of the rule. And we included several stakeholders from outside the UNRBA who we knew would be heavily impacted by each rule section. We held 19 working meetings in that 5-month period where we reviewed iterative drafts and incorporated feedback from the work group. In May, we took our work group products to our Path Forward Committee and an expanded stakeholder list. and held 4 additional meetings on iterative drafts. In June of 2025, DWR held an all stakeholders meeting, and in August, DWR provided to the UNRBA its version of the Falls Lake rules. In September, we transitioned to a broader audience that included our board of directors and some additional stakeholders. We've met 5 times since September to discuss progress on the rules. We've incorporated a lot of what DWR had provided to us in August in our September drafts, and we also worked with DWR to identify the areas of the rules where we still needed to work towards compromise. In early October, we were able to achieve compromises on 3 of the rules, and mid-October, we edited the rules again to incorporate those compromises and redistributed those to the Path Forward Committee and the board. And we continue to negotiate with DWR on the wastewater allocations. For the remainder of this year, we plan to continue those negotiations, and both organizations have stated their commitment to work together to be able to bring a joint package for rules to the EMC Water Quality Committee and hopefully provide that at your January meeting. If compromises cannot be met on some of those critical issues, then the UNRBA reserves the right to petition the EMC for rulemaking if needed. In January, the UNRBA would also like to request that the Water Quality Committee approve its models and move those forward to the EMC at its meeting in January. And then the earliest we think that we could submit a rule package to you all, either with DWR or as an individual petition, would be March 2026. We are developing supplemental fiscal information to support that rule package, but until the rules are finalized, we can't finalize that information. In addition to the links provided in the presentation, our website contains several key references listed here. We also have a link to DWR's 2021 status report for Falls Lake, as well as a link to the North Carolina Collaboratories research studies for both Falls Lake and Jordan Lake. My email and the executive director's email is located on this slide as well if you have any follow-up questions, but I'm available to take questions now as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. That was a good, really good presentation. Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members for Alex? Commissioner Solomon,
Okay.
Chairman Solomon, I'm sorry.
Two important points, I think. One, you could tell by both of these presentations that these folks have been working on these models for a decade or more. Now, while we have, in both cases, Jordan and Falls gotten some updates, the fact that we've got to approve models for both Jordan and Falls is probably new to every commissioner here and will be new to the full EMC. And here in the next meeting or two, we're going to be asked to approve nutrient response models with no background and no prior really briefing on it. So when the department went to put Jordan on here, I said, well, we've already been debating this in Falls. And so let's put them both on the table at the same time. And I think what I, as chairman of the full EMC, would like to see this committee do, obviously, is I don't know that there's a criteria for approving these models. It's not in the legislation. So somehow we're going to ask 15 people to approve a really critical model that's been subject to legislation for 20 years and development for 10 years. And I see some commonalities, but I really need this. I think we need this committee to do the work to say, what would we even do to approve these models? Now, I think Jordan's had a model and they commissioned an outside entity to go do the model. I'm not so sure. I think the department still wants to use that model. On the Falls side, what I can tell you, and this is my interpretation, I'll let Richard speak in a minute, but we had a model from 2011. We've been working with, as Alex indicated, with their model too, and it's been informing a lot of back and forth. But I think now the association wants to incorporate their model efficiently in with the state's model. I'm not sure if it's in lieu or with it. That takes time. But we got to resolve that as an EMC, because what the statutes say is we've got to approve these models. So that's the first thing on the thing is you're going to be asked, both of these are information items, but next meeting, you heard both these presentations say they're coming in hot in January to approve models that none of you knew you had to do till today. Okay?
Well, keep in mind too,
Well, don't tell
Chairman
me to keep in
Solomon.
mind, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
I will, yeah, and go ahead, I'll tag
Okay.
on.
So let's go back, previous slides. So let me get, and this is not a criticism of Alan, but I want Richard to be able to speak to this a little bit. The models are part of approving, developing the rules. Okay, now forward slide. Forward. No, not backwards, forward. To your next steps.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect clarity here. Alex chose to use the word negotiations. We are not negotiating. Okay, we were having discussions. There was 4 places, at least 4, and some other places where the wording was wrong. Richard and some of his staff, and Alex and some of Forrest and their folks, and I sat down and just to say, what is all this about, to try to whittle this down. And so I think through those discussions, we were able, I wouldn't even call them compromises, but we were able to have a better understanding and to clarify what could be in either set of rules. But we're not negotiating because I can't speak for this commission. Neither can Richard from behalf of the whole thing, and nobody in the meeting can speak for behalf of the whole association. So all that has to be discussed, worked out, narrowed down, and then people come back. On the second bullet, reserves the right. Council will tell me that they never forgoed their right. We're not negotiating or in some consent order. So they have a legal right to petition us for private rulemaking anytime they want to. That's in the rules. I think it may be in the statutes, but they can do that as part of the process. Now, y'all have heard me in the past at Full EMC discourage that, because we don't want to have dueling rules come in. So we've really pushed the department and the staff, the department and UNRB, to bring a unified set of rules together. I envision 80 or 90% done, but if we disagree on a couple of things, show us where the sharp differences are and let the EMC decide. Because at the end of these days, it's not the UNRB's rule, it's not the department's rule, it's the EMC's rule. And we've got to bless all of this because we are in charge of rulemaking. So all of this falls under us. So I just want to make sure nobody's giving up any rights, nobody's negotiating anything yet, but we are trying to bring these differences together so we don't have 2 sets of rules. And hopefully we can work through a few decisions by this EMC where they disagree and resolve it one way or the other, right? By the body of this vote and our responsibilities. So that's where we're at. The slide was just a little unclear, Alex. I know you didn't mean it that way, but, and I want to give Richard, I told Richard I'd give him a few minutes to even have any comments on that too, the process we're trying to work through and what we're trying to do. So,
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, Richard Rogers, Director for the Division of Water Resources. First off, I want to echo what Chair Solomon and Alex also said. We have been working together. We've made some really good progress on those 3 areas related to the Falls Lakes purpose and scope, also new development and existing development rules. The allocation is still outstanding. It is the toughest one of them all. But again, we're still communicating, we're still talking. Our staff is getting together now, working on some options that we'll get back together with UNRBA and hopefully the chair and our leadership as well to discuss further. One thing I do want to point out is UNRBA model. If that is the model that's chosen to move forward, will be a major shift in the direction of the rule package that we're working through right now. It'll establish a new baseline, revise nutrient reductions, and the corresponding updates to the rules and physical analysis would be required to reflect the changes. So just to make sure you're aware of that. The other thing I want to note is that the commission has approved schedule for this rulemaking, and the approved schedule has us coming to the committee in March of this year to give information, and then on to the for full action in May. So that's the plan now. I do think that the time between now and that time is going to be extremely useful and beneficial for us all to make sure that we're all aligned as much as we can be related to the rule and also the rule language that we want to bring forward to the commission. We'd like to work with one set of rules and get that forward and push that through the commission. So appreciate the partnership and work with UNRBA and look forward to continuing to working on the Falls Lake rule.
and Richard, just to make sure, you and I will give it back to Steve in a second, but make sure Jordan is just as important as Falls as far as the model and the criteria and the quality plan, and we just don't know anything about it. I know, we know a little
Yes.
bit more about Falls than we do, but we know nothing about Jordan in the background, so we need to know that.
Yeah. Sorry.
With that, Commissioner Ellison,
Director Rogers, make sure I'm clear. When are you going to give us the model for our approval?
The Jordan Lake model?
No.
We are working under the approved model, the updated model of 2008 currently.
Okay.
UNRBA did their model in, I think it's 2015.
This says January 2026, UNRBA requests Water Quality Committee approval of its models. I can't read the rest of it, for consideration by the EMC at its next meeting. So they're gonna, what are the mechanics of our approval of that model?
It would be brought to you, I'm assuming, by UNRBA. Karen, to the statute, I'm not exactly sure, quite frankly.
Alex may have an answer.
So we have the two modeling reports that are linked in the slides, and then we've provided our modeling input files, executables, and output files to DWR. So they have those here on their servers. And so I assume that you could access them that way, or we could share them with you directly.
Okay.
And they're all ready to review right now?
Yes.
Ready for the holidays? I'm just, I mean, to review a
Yes.
water quality model of that complexity, you said it's a three-dimensional model.
The
It's a big
FDC is a
watershed,
three.
It's highly complex. That just seems like a mighty big ask, especially this time of year.
Okay.
I would like clarification, Richard, if you would. The 2011 model was approved by the EMC that you're using for Falls? I'm just trying to figure out, has Jordan got an approved model and Falls already got a pre-approved model? So the EMC approved both those models that exist now? That's my phone, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Yes, so the Falls model was approved by the EMC in 2008. That was developed by the department, and you all approved the nutrient response model in 2008, and that's what the rules are currently based on. For Jordan, similarly, you all approved a model. That model revision that Ellie referred to was done by the collaboratory. You all were presented on that model, just most of you all weren't on the commission at the time, but there was a presentation back in 2000.
But did we officially approve it for rulemaking? What was the last model that was approved by the commission for rulemaking?
In Jordan, I think was 2011. Oh, no, 2006. It was. This is like quiz Karen. I don't remember all the dates.
No, it's okay.
I know this one was 2008. What was it for Jordan?
I believe that's impossible.
2011.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, we're required to approve models. The last approved model we've had for both are in the late 2000s,
Yes.
28, 2010, somewhere in there, 26. So really, both of those models are new models, whether they're generated by UNRB or by UNC Charlotte or Collaboratory. This EMC, if you use either of those models, anything within the last 2 decades, maybe old data, then we got to go through and approve both of them to be used in this rulemaking. Is that right?
The Jordan model, yes, you would have to go through and approve that.
Okay. And I just think we need to all take stock of that because we want to use the most recent data. I know you've spent a lot of money in Jordan. I know that you've spent a lot of money in Falls, and I'd hate to revert back to models or data that are 15 years old as we try to look 20 years in the future. So again, I don't care, Mr. Chairman, y'all decide what you want to, but I think the whole EMC really has to put stock in all this money and time has been spent on more recent models. And now we're at the 12th hour and we need to approve them. So how do we do that? So,
Well, I was going to mention that 30 minutes ago, but
okay,
letting you have a seat there.
good. Thank you.
I've finished with the department. I have a comment on what we've just heard over the last 30 minutes. My concern is that I was directed by you to chair this committee.
Yeah.
And PFAS and 1.4 is all over the place. And then the Falls Lake and Jordan Lake. And then Falls Lake comes out with about anywhere between 70, 80, or 100 people that are tuning in to their board meetings and their stakeholder meetings. And as this position, taking that fully responsible to know what's going on, I'm listening.
Yes.
And I don't know how many tens or hundreds of thousands of people the total region represents in the Jordan, nor do I, or the Falls, but those numbers have been out there. Now, with that responsibility, I know that Director Rogers said March, and then we're here in January and asking this committee to do something that is nearly impossible to give these hundreds of thousands of people to get it right within over the Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays, and everybody's shut down. You can't get anyone, and that's just the way the government works. And to take and you said the money and the time, the department, and all these people are up, and we're volunteers, but we have a huge responsibility here. And what we have in front of us are two great assets, Jordan Lake and Falls Lake for the state of North Carolina, and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And asking this committee now to look at that, and it said, or UNRBA brings its own rules as an information. I don't like to be put in that situation. I don't like to be put in that position. I don't want this committee to be put in that, on that pressure point, because there have been too many hours, too many people, too much money spent to get to this moment. And we dated it back to 2000 something. But here we are to find a solution and to get it right for these two lakes. It's huge responsibility. It's going to require a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of communicating from this committee to be brought up to speed totally, to give each presenter the right information. So I would like to submit to you that we as a committee decide on how y'all want to move forward with this. And then we can launch it back to the EMC tomorrow during my report. But I need to know how the committee feels about this. Commissioner Jaspers.
I have more of a technical question to both the Jordan and Falls Lake models. Now, the data input is one thing, but is there a way to harmonize the modeling? So where you basically are using the same approaches for two different lakes with obviously vastly different data, but you're harmonizing the modeling.
One of the UNRBA's lake models is the EFDC model.
Right.
And that's the same modeling platform that was used for Jordan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Mr. Twitty.
I don't know if this question's appropriate or not, but so the department, EMC has an approved model from back in 2008, 2011. Now there's a new model. Where does the department stand on the new model? Do they support it? Is it in? How do the two models compare, I guess? Because I think what we just heard just now was that if they go to the new model, it's going to kind of reset the baseline on how the targets are set and approved and what needs to happen. I'm unclear on how the two models work together, don't work together. Does approving a new one make the old one go in the trash? Help me,
Yes.
Karen.
So what I'll say is we found out that the model is going to be requested for approval less than 24 hours ago. So I'm not sure we can really provide a thought through response to that.
Falls.
For Falls.
What about Jordan?
For Jordan, so for Jordan, the updated model was done. It was started through the collaboratory, as Ellie presented. It was finished through the department. The public has seen it. The public has commented on it. That's part of model development, is that we provide it to stakeholders. We get their feedback. We run different scenarios, revise the model. So the public has seen it. The stakeholders have seen it. We've gotten feedback. That's part of it. So the update for Jordan talks about different reduction goals, different loading to the estuary. It has a new baseline. So things have been updated from the original model.
So why would the department go to that effort with Jordan, but not do it with Falls? I mean,
Yeah,
you've done nothing with Falls as a department since then.
right. So we didn't do anything on Falls because UNRVA was doing their modeling. We didn't initiate Jordan either. That was initiated through the collaboratory. The session law directed it to be included in the rule readoption. So we just funded the completion of that project that got started. So I'm not sure we started either of them.
But you see the dilemma though. I mean, one's got a very updated model that I think you're endorsing, and then the other model, you're not endorsing the updated version. You want to use your 2011 one or 28
Yeah,
one.
so I mean, our understanding was the stakeholders in previous discussions that there was consensus to not use the updated model because it had larger reduction goals. So I don't know that we're opposed to anything.
Okay.
We just, it's a shift in the conversation.
Okay.
Alex, you have some clarification?
Yes, thanks. So we have received approval from DWR for the watershed model and the two lake models that occurred in July 2024 and July 2025. And we are proposing to use the information from all of the models, not throw out the old model and just look at the new model. We've discussed with our work group and DWR and went back and forth a few times on whether or not we should change the baseline year from 2006. Our work group felt like it was better to keep the 2006 baseline year because it is easier to track progress relative to the same yardstick. DWR had suggested at one point that we change the baseline year to correspond to the UNRBA's modeling. We had subsequent discussions about that, and my understanding was that DWR also agreed that keeping the baseline year at 2006 would be more streamlined, particularly when we look at the fiscal impacts of the rules. If we change the baseline, then we're also going to greatly change the fiscal analysis. If we keep the baseline the same, then we can use DWR's fiscal note from 2010 as a jumping off point and not change everything all at once.
Thank you. Commissioner Bumgarner.
So I don't know that we're going to get to this today, but just to put everybody on alert, whenever, if it's January or if it's March, whoever delivers the model and discussion, the thing that I want to make sure and see is that the models are achievable and not just pie in the sky, and that the subsequent rules to the model are achievable. I know it's shocking, but we've had models and rules that didn't really were achievable in the past, and I want to make sure that that is the case going forward with these.
So having time to review that and have our expertise, what it is here for the committee, to look that over. What part of the game do you want to bring that in?
Whoever's presenting to give that case, to make that case to us, that the model is achievable, however it may be, and that the rules are structured so that it makes the model achievable. Those are achievable. The rules in the model are achievable and don't leave gaps that you just can't comply with.
So you would want an overview from both the state or the department?
I'm just putting on notice whoever's presenting that we would like to see that be a core part of their presentation, that we can achieve, that what they're proposing is achievable and the rules thereof.
January,
March, April, May.
So what the department is looking at is March, and then for us to do something in May. So, but we definitely need to see something before March.
Chair, my opinion is maybe we work some of those details out in the background as the committee's planning for its next January meeting, and then maybe you and Chair Solomon can work some of those out. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Yarborough?
It seems like a mighty big lift.
Yeah, sure.
And, but that's all I can say.
Yes, it is. Commissioner Twitty.
I would just request that going forward, we give equal time to both UNRB and the department. It sounds like they're together on a lot of things, but they're maybe don't see eye to eye. And I think for me, I'm not going to become a 3D reservoir model expert in 3 months. I ain't even going to try. So the department has a modeling department with people who are experts. I would like to hear from them and UNRB's experts as well. And I don't really want to have battling modelers, but I'd like to hear the ramifications of approving one model versus not approving it, or it's still not clear how that's going to work to me. But certainly if we're talking about different approaches to rules, I'd like to hear the pluses and minuses and in a way that I'm going to be able to understand that. So.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. That concludes our information items. Director Rogers.
No further comment.
Okay.
Chair.
Smart man. Committee members, the newest member, Commissioner Jaspers.
Good.
Good. Okay. Commissioner Ellison.
I'm better.
Okay. Commissioner Yarborough. Commissioner Reardon. Commissioner Bumgarner. Commissioner Twitty. Council. Good. Again, thank you for coming today and being a part of this, and thank those people who are listening and are sending us information. We appreciate that. Thanks to the committee. We have a full committee, got a lot of work. Commissioner Yarborough said, yes, it is a heavy lift. We have a lot of responsibility, but I think we all take it very seriously. But I appreciate all that the Chairman Solomon does and being at all these meetings and supporting the effort. And thanks again for all the state department employees and all that they do during trying times. Thank you so much. Meeting is adjourned. Did you say?